Yeah, so if you recall my review of Annabelle Comes Home, I said I was house sitting this weekend, or maybe it was last week. So, yeah, that's why I'm obviously in a different location. In fact, I'm in a different basement. Anyway, All Elite Wrestling's FyterFest, it ended basically about, actually more like, I'd say 5 minutes ago. Maybe a little earlier than that. It went a little past 10, basically. Normally, if you notice, especially I think it's in the opening credits, it says pictures are courtesy of WWE.com. Obviously, no, they are not. They're courtesy of CEO Gaming, who was holding. They basically this is kind of co-branded with All Elite Wrestling and CEO, which was a basically an esports type thing. They're doing a fighting game tournament. I don't know what fighting game they were doing, but that's what was going on there. And so yeah, they had an hour-long pre-show, and then they had what was kind of a pay-per-view. Anyway, our first match is a pre-show match, and it's a triple threat tag team match. The Private Party of Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Quinn against Southern California Uncensored, Kazarian and Scorpio Sky, Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky, and the Best Friends, Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor. So, yeah, this was a real high-impact, high-spots match. If you're familiar especially with the likes of Kazarian and Sky, you know those are guys who, and Christopher Daniels is also the running mate in the tag team, but he's later. You know those are guys who can really put on top-quality matches. Private Party, I think, are newcomers. At least that's what the announcers would seem to indicate, that these were not only newcomers to All Elite Wrestling, but they were newcomers to professional wrestling in general. And the Best Friends were definitely, I think, the most over tag team there, but a lot of big-time high spots in this. The team that won the match got a first-round bye in the Tag Team Championship tournament for to win the inaugural AEW Tag Team Championships. So, Kazarian hit at one point. They had they were fighting on the outside of the ring, and I think it was Private Party had Private Party had someone up for I think it was Kazarian for a Magic Killer type move, and Kazarian basically used that to counter into a tornado DDT that landed on the ring padding on the outside of the ring area. Sorry, we got someone sniffing the camera stand here. So, anyway, Beretta hit Cassidy with this Fisherman Northern Lights suplex. It went over the normal Northern Lights, but as he was bridging, he actually locked in for a better hold on a leg hook pin. Let's see. Unfortunately, something that's happened a lot tonight, there were some problems with the stream. It would either completely freeze up and crash, or it would just bounce around. Wrestlers would be up and it looked like about a move was going to be done, and then suddenly everyone would just be out in the ring, and something had happened. Sorry. Something had happened, and they were all just lying down, and it's what in the world? And they wouldn't even show replays a lot of the time. A couple of times they did, but not all the time, unfortunately. Basically, the Best Friends won with the Strong Zero, which is a Vertebreaker double stomp combo on Mark Quinn for the 3 count and the victory. After that, the Best Friends were threatened by a faction called the Dark Order. The lights went out, the Dark Order suddenly surrounded the ring, and then just as quickly they vanished. And another motif that had happened throughout the pre-show, which was because this is the Fighter Festival, which obviously sounds a lot like the Fyter Festival. If you watch the documentaries on Netflix and Hulu about that and everything that was going on there, we had this sort of running joke with the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, doing this, like I said, documentary thing, and they're talking to the camera, and they're like, "Oh, we thought the bands were going to show up. We were promised villas, and we got tents and cheese sandwiches and not full meals and free booze and a hotel and stuff like that." And I think it even said right at the beginning that they couldn't find a way to get into the arena, so they had to hold it on the beach, even though it was actually in an arena, or he had to do, some guy had to do something. Like, I know the Elite has their own YouTube channel, and their YouTube series being the Elite. I really haven't watched any of it because there's only so much time in the day, so I can't 100% say any of that. But thankfully they really only kept this like the first hour because it was getting old by the end of it. Anyway, our second match is Allie versus Leva Bates. Leva Bates was Blue Pants in NXT, the WWE's developmental territory. Anyway, Leva Bates is part of a new faction called the Librarians, because they're trying to be the chief librarians of All Elite Wrestling, and she has a partner, I guess it was Force Honor, named Tony Avalon. And yeah, no, Pete Avalon. Sorry, Pete Avalon. Really, Allie's kind of hard to pin down. Again, I think this is where the stream problems I began to have, because unfortunately this match looked like it could have been pretty good on paper, and then it just kind of started off really slow, and then with the stream crashing, it didn't help, because it seemed like every time Allie would start to mount some type of comeback, the stream would go wonky, and I'd have to like pause and then restart and pause and restart and pause and restart. And basically the ending was Bates had basically dominated most of the match, and the ending was Avalon got up to, looked like he was trying to aid Bates, but really he throws a book into the ring, and he sold it like he was trying to throw it to Bates. But if you watch the highlight, like he clearly throws it like 4 feet over her head to Allie, and Allie just throws it to the side and hits her finisher, which is the BSE for the 3 count and the victory. Like I said, this was a rather forgettable match. Not the most memorable of the night. And we'll talk a bit about the other ones after that. And this is our last kickoff show match, the hardcore match between Michael Nakazawa and Alex Jabali, who is like the chief organizer for CEO, who apparently is also a wrestler. And again, I'm not entirely sure what some of the background stuff on this, unfortunately. He did pay for his own pyro, though. Like I said, this is a hardcore match. One of the funnier bits is Nakazawa, who's kind of acting heelish in this, gets on the mic and he says, CEO sucks, everyone knows EVO is the best fighting game tournament out there. And he then said, because at Double or Nothing in Las Vegas, Jabali had injured his knee. He says, oh, your right knee, is it okay? I mean, he was injured. He said, well, actually it was my left knee that was injured. Oh, that's good to know. And Nakazawa kicks the left knee immediately. As they're fighting, Nakazawa began covering everything in baby oil. And so everyone, including the referee, started slipping and sliding around the ring. They fought into the crowd. They fought to a swimming pool where Nakazawa got a inflatable flamingo and beat them, and Jabali actually slammed Nakazawa into the pool. They fought back to the ring. Jabali ducked a... Nakazawa removed his jockstrap without removing his other tights, and we kept trying to use it like the mandible, like the Sacco mandible claw. Jabali ducked that, and he pulled out... At one point, he pulled out 2 weapons. He pulled out an arcade fighting stick for an arcade machine, and then he pulled out a bunch of arcade buttons with his picture on it. But Nakazawa countered a Maestro roll-up into a roll-up of his own for the 3 count of the victory, and that's pretty much how that ended. It was an entertaining match. It knew how to work the spots just right. Definitely good heel work from Nakazawa, so I think I'd like to see more of someone like that. Okay, our next match is Christopher Daniels versus Chima. Christopher Daniels of TNA fame. He was part of a tag team called Triple X, Ring of Honor. Is it Windy City Impact Wrestling, I think was what it was called at one point. And now he's part of the tag team SoCal Uncensored. Chima, longtime veteran in both Mexico and Japan. He now works in China as building up there for... I think it's OWE. So the two have met quite a bit before. Early on, Chima locked Daniels in kind of this hammerlock stretch hold. He arced his legs. He managed to get body scissors around Daniels and had him in a hammerlock type maneuver. Daniels hit an aerial moonsault and put that into a crossface hold. Chima hit a backstabber from the second rope. Chima hit a crucifix slam off of the top rope. Daniels came in and he hit the Angel's Wings, which is one of his finishers, and covered Chima for the pin, but he covered it like too deep and it enabled Chima to basically roll out. Chima hit basically the white noise. I don't remember what they called it on the show, but he followed that up with the Meteora knee for the 3 count and the victory. Really good, darn good little match there. So a good, solid, entertaining, good spots. Again, it's been my experience that SoCal Censored are technically heels, but Daniels basically played babyface throughout most of this, and even shook Chima's hand at the end of it. So I don't know what to make of that. Our next match after that is Nia Rose, triple threat match. Nia Rose versus Riho, a Japanese wrestler, and another Japanese wrestler, Yuka Sakazuki. Riho, basically, Nia Rose is the larger of the 3, and she tried to do the handshakes to start things off. She basically faked it and attacked both women. Both women tried to double team her, but these were 2 very, very petite girls, and Nia Rose is not petite, all due respect to her. And I actually liked her. Nia Rose did some really top-notch heel work. Did a good job of utilizing her size to her advantage. And even during the match, they say she's possibly the most talented women's wrestler around, but she lacks focus. She gets lazy sometimes, and that's what happened here, because she really dominated a lot of this match. Like Riho and Sakazuki double teamed her, but couldn't do anything. She would just no sell. Eventually, they did hit a couple of moves, and then Neo and Sakazuki began fighting each other. At one point, Riho was draped over the top rope, and Nia Rose climbed to the top rope and hit like a flying knee drop onto Riho and knocked her over. She then went for a swanton. Riho rolled out of the way. Riho hits the 619 because she's a big Rey Mysterio fan. And Sakazuki's kept trying to hit some moves of her own. She kept getting knocked out, and Riho, sorry, you have Nia Rose, you have Riho, so I'm mixing them up. So Rose knocked Sakazuki out of the ring, went to hit a move on Riho, but Riho countered it into kind of an Australian roll pin for the 3 count and the victory. So caught her off guard at the cradle, basically. And after that, Rose attacked Riho, and Sakazuki came to her aid, but after that, Riho attacked Sakazuki, and the 2 who had been kind of friendly going into the match are not friends anymore. So they are building now, even though they don't quite have a weekly television show yet. So, but this is good because you're story building so that you have foundations for people to understand when you start working on TNT soon. After that, we had a Fatal 4-Way match, Hangman Page versus Maxwell, Jacob Freeman, it's Jacob Freeman, Jimmy Havoc, and Jungle Boy. Right off the bat, because Hangman Page is one of the top contenders for the All Elite Championship that he's facing. I can't think who it was now. I think it was Chiba, Super Chiba, I think is what his name was. Here's the thing, they're not always the best at introducing the wrestler, because the name cards were up way too fast for me to read anything. I mean, obviously I know like Jim Ross was calling some of the matches, and Excalibur was one of the announcers, and Golden Boy was the other one. And then there was some other guy in the pre-show, but I didn't catch his name very well either, and so if I screw any of these up, I apologize. I'm trying my best here. MJF did some really great heel work. He's basically your sort of rich, arrogant guy. He calls himself the salt of the earth, but he thinks he's better than everyone else. But he's also like the biggest Cody fanboy, and we'll have some funny bits when that happens. Jungle Boy is kind of your high spots guy. He has a a dinosaur luchador, basically, called Luchasaurus as his partner. And Jimmy Havoc is a longtime veteran of the British indie scene. You're probably familiar with him. And Hangman Page is he's the guy apparently AEW is really high on. Like I said, he's I think in a couple weeks going for the AEW champ. It's either in a couple weeks or at the end of the month. They kept they're talking about like two different big shows, and it got really confusing too. But right off the bat, MJF and Page, because they're sort of feuding at the point, Page went after MJF. MJF tried to catch Havoc in a crucifix pin after he hit a Michinoku driver on Jungle Boy. Probably the big spot of the match is Jungle Boy did kind of this moonsault. What did I write here? Let's see, ring post. Here it is. Yeah, he did a sort of a swinging moonsault off of the ring post. He didn't quite get the arc that he needed to because he actually caught a piece of the ring post on narrowly avoided a tragedy there. And sorry, I have someone sniffing the tripod again here. But yeah, that was actually the big thing. Basically, a lot of more high spots. MJF, Page has been selling a knee injury recently, and Cat, move. Anyway, Page has been selling a knee injury recently, and so MJF caught him in a figure four. But eventually, Page fought out of that and hit Jimmy Havoc with his buckshot lariat and the Deadeye, which is kind of a vertebraker-like maneuver for the 3 count and the victory. So, yeah, again, like I said, they're pushing Page as being their really big guy right now. Probably going to win the inaugural championship. At least, again, that's what they seem to be building towards. Like, at Double or Nothing, he was supposed to face Pac, that's the former Neville in WWE, who's now the champion in a Japanese company called Dragon Gate, but Dragon Gate didn't want their champion to lose, and there's this, that was kind of a shebang that happened there, so. But and it seemed like, yeah, they are pushing him really big. That takes us to the next match, which is Cody versus Darby Allin. Darby Allin, excuse me. He's basically playing kind of he's from Seattle, and he's kind of this loner, not quite Raven like loner guy, but it's sort of kind of in that vein. He doesn't quite have Raven's charisma, but he's definitely targeted Cody Rhodes, and he's not quite hardcore, but Darby Allin is. But anyway, Cody, this is another match, unfortunately, too, that suffered with the stream problems where things were skipping around, because I would see moves start, and then suddenly, like, something had happened, and something else had happened, and I didn't know what happened. Like, for example, Cody hit a fireman jawbreaker, Cody locked on a figure four. Suddenly something had happened where Cody had tossed Darby Allin to the outside of the ring, and Allin had tricked him with a handshake into a roll-up, but I didn't see it because all I saw was both guys, like, lying down. Allin hit kind of a corkscrew crossbody and then locked on kind of this twisting armbar because he had actually caught Cody on the ring post with his wrist, and so Cody was working wounded. Cody came back, I think he was trying to do like a top rope crossroads, but he could only do a top rope superplex basically. But eventually Cody hit the crossroads, but just as he's covering the timekeeper, yes, they actually have a timekeeper that counts off the minutes. They stop and they say the match is 20 minutes, and they say there's 10 minutes left in the match, 5 minutes left in the match. And yeah, in this case, the time expired, so it actually ended in a draw. Cody began saying, hey, look, this match was doing pretty well here. Let's get 5 more minutes and actually settle this. But then Sean Spears, that's the former Ty Dillinger, comes into the ring with a steel chair, and he attacks Cody with the steel chair, and he hits Cody in the head. And obviously this was planned, and this is what really irks me about this. We shouldn't be doing that anymore. That is a banned move in many wrestling companies for a reason. We don't do chair shots to the head anymore. And I don't care if you say, oh, it's space. If they're spaced out, no. You can't. It's a massive concussion risk. You can't do that anymore. And I really hope this was a one-time thing, because we had a couple other unsanctioned, we had a couple other kind of hardcore match incidents that at least they didn't have that type of headshot to it. So I hope this was just a one-time thing. But yeah, as this was happening, MJF, like I said, was the big Cody fanboy. SoCal Uncensored came out. A bunch of others did to check on Cody and make sure he was okay. But yeah, he was bleeding from the back of his head. They said it looked like there was a piece of flesh hanging out, but I think that was probably rigged in that case. But like I said, I don't like chair shots to the head anymore. It really should not be done. That really put a big sour note on this show for me, and I've seen a couple of people complaining about it online too. So, and that leads us to our second to the last match of the night: the Elite versus the Lucha Brothers. That's Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix, and the Laredo Kid. The Elite are, of course, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. And the Young Bucks came out as Ken and Ryu from Street Fighter, and Kenny Omega came out as Akuma. And they talked Justin Roberts into starting the match off with a round one fight, even though it was only a 2-1 fall. Definitely this was the big high spots match. Laredo Kid does some insane moves. He dodges a super kick. He goes for a top rope crossbody. Laredo Kid can do flips to the outside. He did a suicide moonsault and he was joined by the Luchas. Eventually, super kicks came because, of course, it's the Young Bucks, so the super kicks came, and Nick Johnson hit a head scissor arm drag on both Luchas. Laredo Kid fought out of a one-winged angel attempt by Kenny Omega. Kid went for, I think it was a swanton. Omega dodged out of that, and Elite goes on, and they ganged up on Laredo Kid. Pentagon Jr. came to his aid. A lot of jumping and Seguris in this too. The Elite hit, it began with an H. They all hit Hadoukens on the Luchas too, which is a great spot. they knew they timed everything right, so it all came through at the same time. Omega broke up a pin with a V trigger. Phoenix hit a jumping cutter on Omega. Phoenix then hit Nick Johnson with a splash, a Spanish fly to the outside of the ring. That's what it was, onto Matt Johnson. So onto Matt Johnson and I believe Pentagon Jr. Phoenix got into the ring, and Laredo Kid got into the ring, but Kenny Omega caught him with the one-winged angel for the 3 count of the victory. Like I said, really good high spots match. Pacing was a little wonky at sometimes too. Again, I had the streaming problems with this, so sometimes you would see things start and then 4 other things had happened, and then it kind of jumped back, and then it just stopped and went back to the menu. So yeah, unfortunately that did hinder a lot of my enjoyment of this show. The action that I saw was really good and really top notch, so I don't want to seem like I'm completely crapping on this, but unfortunately it's like this outer circumstance affected the show. If you remember my WrestleMania review, I had a similar experience last year, where the stream just kept dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping, and it's just like, I want to watch the show, guys. So yeah, I think if I can get in the position where I can watch another All Elite Wrestling live stream, if I can afford to get another one, I would like to at least give one more shot at watching it live, and hopefully if it's fixed itself and it's not as bad, I'll be okay. But if not, any future ones after that, it will probably have to be on-demand tape delay, because I think that way maybe I don't have those types of problems. And that does lead us into the final match of the night, the unsanctioned Lights Out match between Jon Moxley, a.k.a. Dean Ambrose, and Joey Janella. Right off the bat, Janella hit a suicide dive, and the two brawled out into the crowd. Janella got at a table and attacked Moxley with a prosthetic leg that a fan gave him. Moxley got out a chair and then slammed Janella on top of it. And here's the thing. This was a hardcore match. This attack guys, these was two of the most brutal guys around. Both of them have held the title King of the Death match. They didn't hit each other in the head. So, yeah, I don't know why we had to do that thing with Cody earlier. Anyway, probably the big, one of the big spots, a lot of barbed wire on this as well. Moxley had a chair that was completely wrapped up in barbed wire, and he put it on Janella's chest, and he stomped on it. And then he tried to go for another move, but Janella slammed him on it. Another point, both Janella and Moxley pulled out boards that were wrapped in like large boards about that big, wrapped in barbed wire, set them up to slam. And of course, they each got slammed on the board that they set up. Another time, Moxley had put up two tables, but Janella came back and got a ladder and hit an elbow drop, sending Moxley through one of those tables. Moxley hit a double arm DDT, and then he hit the paradigm shift, which is the dirty deeds. Sorry, it's late. I'm tired. So anyway, he hit the dirty deeds, and that's how he sent Janella through the board that Janella set up. Then Moxley got up the thumbtacks. He got out 2 bags of thumbtacks. He suplex bombed Janella. He ripped off Janella's shoes as well. So he slammed Janella onto the thumbtacks, and then Janella, to get off, has to get up and walk through more thumbtacks with bare feet. So he's hurting himself even more. And then Moxley hits the double arm DDT for the 3 count and the victory. Moxley's celebration was pretty short-lived, though, because he was immediately attacked by Kenny Omega, because they're facing at, I think it's Fight for the Fallen. Again, they have 2 shows in July. They have Fight for the Fallen, and then they have All Out. And I think the problem is they kept talking about, I kept forgetting, which is supposed to be on which match. So I think they're fighting at Fight for the Fallen. Don't hold me to that. But, Kenny Omega attacked him. He hit a V-trigger and a double stomp through a table. He then hit, I think he actually hit the paradigm shift, the double arm DDT, onto Ambrose on a garbage can. But afterward, I said Ambrose, sorry, Moxley. And afterwards, Moxley was smiling as the show went off the air. So he knows he's gotten into Kenny Omega's head. Like I said, overall, what I saw in the show was good. Unfortunately, a lot of the outside circumstances really did affect it. The streaming knocked this down quite a bit, so I can't quite get the streaming problems I had. I can't quite give it an A. I will give it a B, but again, I have major problems with not only with that streaming, but I have major problems with that headshot. I hope that was just a one-time thing and they don't ever do it again, and maybe, Spears got a little overzealous or something, because that can't happen anymore. We can't live in this era of concussions, and the announcers themselves even said, wow, the danger that Sean Spears put him in, and they're talking about, I hope he gets CTE testing. Yeah, you can talk about that, it's bad, but that doesn't mean exactly. This is a predetermined sport. You really should not be doing unprotected chair shots to the head anymore. Just don't do it. Okay? I hope, like I said, maybe this was just a one-time thing. If it is, I don't like it, but I can be okay with it. But yeah, I am giving All Elite Wrestling FyterFest a B because of that, though. That really bogged the show down. I almost dropped it to a C, but again, it's one thing in what was otherwise a pretty entertaining show, except for the streaming problems. So, yeah, I don't know if I don't want to penalize the show too much for that. It didn't completely ruin my enjoyment. It just, it stuck in my craw. And, so, wow. This is going to be a long one. This is, it'll be Monday when I grow up, or Sunday, when I put this up, but, Yeah, next video after I've already put the random trade review on Olympian Zeus. The next video after this is going to be the Spider-Man Far From Home review. And next wrestling is going to be Extreme Rules. I know there's a couple other things happening that weekend. I probably will not get to them though because it's going to be a busy weekend. So see you all next time. Guys, are you tired of me constantly talking only about WWE and NXT? Want to see me expand my wrestling coverage? Check out my Patreon at Sleepy Time for Cat Productions. Also, remember, if you like the video, give it a like, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.